Welcome to They Mostly Pottered at Night. Mostly, I am Salem, joined by my co-host Graveyard.
Hello.
This is episode 89 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. Have you ever wanted to build your best friend or give a stranger a makeover? How about having a good long conversation with yourself and reminiscing about the past? Well, today's episode is just for you as we feature Lucky McKee in this month's Director Spotlight, recorded on St. Patrick's Day.
Not planned whatsoever.
Hey. Totally planned.
Yeah.
So yes, Lucky McKee on this great St. Patrick's Day. So we're doing 3 movies this week, directed by Lucky McKee. They are May, The Woman. There's a kind of a complicated story there that we'll get into. And then Old Man. Which I believe just came out a couple years ago,
2022, yeah.
So we're gonna go over all those. I'll give you I'll let Graveyard take the recap of The Woman, but I will give you the little intro on how that story came to be and where it went, and why it's okay that you watch technically the middle movie of a trilogy without the other 2, and that's why. Well, we'll get into that. But we will start out with May, which I believe came out in 2002, 3.
I think 02.
02. Sure. So, well, I mean, it's a flashback now, right? 20 years. Well, I think it's technically 25 to be classic. So, not quite there yet. Almost. Okay, so May. There's a little bit of back and forth in the beginning. I'll just start at the chronologically the beginning to make it easy. Anyway, there's a young girl who is relatively normal in every way except for she has a lazy eye. And her mother is a very overbearing and apparently obsessed with aesthetics person.
A smidge, yeah.
Who forces her to either wear a patch over her lazy eye so that she looks like a pirate when she talks to other children so that they don't make fun of her lazy eye. I would imagine that a patch would probably be worse, but okay. And so yeah, they're trying to she's trying to fix it. She's trying to put hair over, whatever. She's just very overbearing, uncaring, obsessed with looks kind of person. And she kind of capitalizes on this by giving her birthday present, which is a doll that her mother made that is locked in a case and is not allowed to come out.
Mint condition.
Yes, mint condition, locked in a case. The doll can never come out, but it's supposedly supposed to be her best friend. Anyway, so we go 20 years into the future, to where May is an adult living on her own. Her parents do not make another appearance in this, so they're just there to set up the story, I guess. So she still has the doll still in the case. There's a couple of little cracks on the case, I guess, just to show that it's been through some stuff. But anyway, she is an adult now. She makes her own clothes. She works in a animal hospital or veterinarian's office.
Let's face it, is a staple for weird people.
Apparently. It's usually some kind of medical profession, either medical, veterinarian, or mortician.
Yeah.
It's always, the quirky girls always have one of those jobs. So anyway, so she still has the lazy eye, but she wears glasses, and when she wears these glasses, her eye gets pulled forward. So while she's wearing the glasses, she doesn't have a lazy eye. Well, as soon as she takes them off, it comes back. So basically, this movie starts when she gets contacts that fix her lazy eye so she doesn't have to wear glasses. And that essentially, I guess, gives her enough confidence to talk to this boy that she's been obsessed with, who has perfect hands.
Well, talk to / stalk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but we're starting out here. So, his perfect hands. So she loves his hands, therefore she loves him, and she, basically stalks him and, waits outside of his house for hours for him to open the door. That kind of level of obsession. But he is okay with this because he's kind of a weird dude who loves, he mentions that he loves Dario Argento movies. He brings her in his house and he's got a bunch of weird, I don't know, 90s industrial art I don't know how else to describe that, but that's what it looks like. It looks like, old school industrial art of like, alt, kind of morbid stuff, right?
Mhm.
Which she is totally cool with because, she is, a weird, quirky girl that's into that kind of stuff. And so he likes her because she's weird, just like he's weird. And they basically try to like make out one time, and she like bites him to the point of drawing blood because he showed her his student film, and the student film was just like, this art house version of a like, picnic in a romantic picnic in the woods where they just like eat each other.
Literally eat each other.
You're right, yeah, like zombies eating each other. And then she kind of, I guess, sees it as like a signal of that's what he likes, and so she decides to like bite a chunk out of his lip to like gushing blood. And so he's like, okay, like you're a little too weird for me, so we're gonna end this. And she does not take it well.
No, she blames her doll for teaching her how to kiss improperly.
Yes, she blames the doll for giving her bad advice. Yeah, and she starts like stalking him even more, and then he's like, please leave me alone. She has like a kind of a rebound with her I guess co-worker at the animal hospital, who's more like just a receptionist. Played by Anna Faris in an interesting role.
Essentially playing her character from Scary Movie, but in this movie, I feel.
I don't know.
Ditzy-ish.
Well, she's feigning the ditziness. In this movie, she's feigning ditziness as kind of a seduction tactic. Once she gets past the seduction, you can see that she's not nearly as dumb as she pretends to be. She was just playing that angle for her. Yeah. Because she's kind of like the female, like, wham bam, thank you ma'am kind of character. And I think because May was so innocent and, kind of quiet and shy, she was playing dumb to let her come out of her shell by explaining things to her. Is what she was doing. I don't think she wasn't that dumb. In the Scary Movie, I mean, her character is that dumb because she plays the straight man in the movie. But
right.
Anyway, yeah. But anyway, interesting character for Anna Faris to play, regardless. Anyway, so that kind of falls through because after they hook up, she just kind of moves on to another girl, and then she gets kind of heartbroken there, and then she basically just decides, well, everybody sucks, so I'm going to murder people and then cut off the parts of them that I like and then make my own friend. So she cuts off Adam's hands because she loves his hands. She cuts off the weird punk guy that she kind of picks up on the bus stop for his arms because she likes his tattoo. The girl that Anna Faris hooked up with because she has nice legs, so of course she took her legs. She likes Anna Faris's neck, so she takes her neck. It appears that she takes like her whole torso there, but
just
specifically
just not her disgusting mole on her finger.
Okay? Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, the finger was what because she could never find perfection in one person, right? So that's why she has to cut the people up and take the good parts of all of them.
Right.
But she doesn't take anyone's head. So she builds this like Frankenstein and then tries to put like her doll's eyes on it. There's a bizarre side story of her trying to like befriend a blind girl. And they end up breaking the doll and the case, and that's why the doll is broken. It really doesn't matter, but I'm saying it just so you know why the doll's eyes are now broken and out of the body. And she puts the doll's eyes on this corpse thing, and then she gets all upset because it can't see her because it doesn't have eyes. It has fake eyes, even though she talked to the doll like it was real. So I don't, whatever. So she basically cuts out one of her own eyes so that she can give the eye to her thing that she creates. And then after she gives it the eye, she like cries because she thinks she failed, but then the arm of this creature like moves over and holds her, and then she like feels happy and comforting, and then that's it.
Yes.
That's the end of the film. So yeah, there is no real like finale here, but yeah, I guess the construction and creation of this Frankenstein monster is the end. So
Yes, her murder spree is done. For now, maybe.
well, yeah, but I mean, like, she murdered everybody she knows. Like, it's not going to take long for her to come back to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I guess there's no like finale of like, you know, her getting caught or anything. It's like literally her laying in bed with this Frankenstein monster is the end. That's it, done. So it's not my first time watching it. I'm assuming it's not your first time watching it.
No, correct. It is not my first time watching it.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it a couple times. I think it's literally. I think I've seen it twice. It wasn't anywhere near 2002. I want to say it was maybe like 2012-ish when I saw it for the first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was not near when it came out because again, I was out of horror movies at that time. I didn't care.
Right.
I wasn't really into them. It wasn't until later, I think when a friend of mine turned me on to it. I want to say I watched May and the Woman around the same time. I think The Woman came out in like 2011 or 2012.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, so I want to say I watched May and the Woman about the same time. And it was about, I think it was like a year or so after The Woman came out. Because it was on some streaming service. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was Shudder.
I think so.
I think Shudder was around then. Hey, whatever. I was on some service, and May and that movie were both on it, and I watched them. At that time, I had no idea they were the same director. I didn't watch them like back to back or anything, but it was around that same time period. So I had no idea they're the same director until fairly recently when we were putting this thing together. I noticed that, oh yeah, they had the same director. So that's it. So yeah, I don't remember what my first reaction was. I thought it was kind of strange and quirky and weird, you know, interesting. But yeah, that's about what about you?
For me, I saw this when it was released essentially DVD at this point in time, 2002, 2003. I watched it with my then girlfriend, now wife, because I go, oh, that guy, you know, Adam, is in The Wrong Turn, right? Which came out about the same time frame. Then he came out in Dead and Breakfast. I'm like, okay, this guy is doing horror movies. So I kind of started to follow his work that he was doing. The guy that played Adam. It turns out on the rewatch that the wife goes, oh, he was in Clueless. I go, sure. I don't know. But I remember watching it back then. I go, this is a interesting piece of horror movie because we were in the smack dab of like PG-13 horror movies, I feel at this point, right?
Yeah, early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting take. It was kind of it's a bad ending, right? We like bad endings, and for 2002, everyone was the PG-13, and there weren't really bad endings. So this was kind of like that breath of fresh air at that time period for me. Rewatches, you know, I probably have seen it a handful of times, not a lot. This is probably my maybe third or fourth time watching it. And it had probably been, you know, 15 years between watching, and I remember everything that happened. Nothing was surprising to me, other than actually recognizing, you know, May in these other things by Lucky McKee at this point.
Right.
I don't know if I would have watched, you know, the 9 years apart essentially between May and The Woman, if I would recognize her in the movie.
But yeah, without seeing it back to back. Yeah. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. So, it, like I said, it is an interesting movie to say the least, and we'll get into it. But I said it was a quirky piece that was kind of, I think went unnoticed, I would say.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think it was a little too out there for the mainstream quite.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like it was out, like it wasn't like nobody watched it. Like I knew of it. I had heard of it before then. But again, I also knew a lot of horror people, so I guess it wouldn't be weird for me. But yeah, I didn't watch it because I was out of horror movies at that time and didn't didn't sound interesting enough for me to watch it.
Right. Sure.
Anyway, high points. So you want to go first? When we go for, I'll go first.
You go first.
Okay. So I will say, May's acting in the movie is great because you really do feel that anxiety and that awkwardness, like the whole movie, like the whole time. Like you feel it, and that's really because of the way that she's acting, just how weirdly she acts as a human in her scenes. Really does sell it, and it really, I mean, that kind of the whole movie hinges around that. So like, if she didn't quite hit that, I think it would be more of a comedy rather than the interesting piece that it is. I mean, she really did nail that. Again, Adam's room I thought was pretty cool. Like that art and stuff was interesting and dark and strange. I would probably put it up in my room. But it was good. It really, I think it really kind of filled in that kind of like, you know, Nine Inch Nails late 90s vibe. That's probably what they were going for. But like I said, that industrial morbid art was pretty cool. And I thought Anna Faris was interesting in her role, because you don't really see her in that kind of role. It was interesting enough. I thought that was fun. What about you? What do you got?
Oh no, like the style of it, like I said, you nailed it. Adam's room is fantastic. You know, you see it that he's like a mechanic essentially, right? He's always working with his hands. So that, you know, comes into play. That's why he is the world's greatest hands, apparently. And you're right, you know, May, the actress, that was astounding. Like, you go, wow, she's insane. And, you know, you see how insane she really is. Like, you know, putting his hand into her face while he's falling asleep at the cafe, and she's, you know, there for hours at a time. And I think they did a great job showing how that one little piece of her mother kind of being that way and having to wear the eye patch just made her just the outcast, right? In such a short time frame, you understood it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's essentially the whole point of that scene is to show you why she's as weird as she is because her mom was nuts.
Right. And you do feel bad for her. You know, she seems to generally care about her job, you know, and the creatures. So that's good. And I do, you know, I like kind of the metaphor of the glass breaking slowly on the doll case, right? It's her sanity breaking.
Right.
You know, and kind of just breaking to the point where all the poor blind kids were trying to see what happened, and they all just put their hands into the glass. You know, I thought that was good. And it was kind of like that unique Build-A-Friend Frankenstein's monster thing that you'd have seen, like, oh, I can see Tim Burton doing this movie in a way.
Yeah, it has that same kind of vibe to it.
Right?
Yeah. Not quite as, I guess, fantastical as Tim Burton sometimes makes it, but it definitely has that same vibe of like a weird, quirky person who's not necessarily bad. Well, again, in the beginning, she's not necessarily bad. She's just really weird. Just This movie takes that left turn that the Tim Burton ones don't, is that they don't actually get crazy weird.
Right. But no, I think it was well done. And I think it, you know, because you don't know really what year it is. You never know what decade it's really taking place. Yeah, there's, you know, phones and stuff, but I think they did a good job of everything for it being really probably just like a really low budget movie.
All right, low points, go.
That mole was fake as hell.
Which one? Yes, yeah.
Like, we're like, I was watching her, she's like, she doesn't have a mole in her finger. I'm like, no, clearly she doesn't have an actual mole in her finger.
I don't think anyone has a mole in their finger like that.
No.
It was. I mean, it was made big and obvious so that everybody could see it. But like, yeah, I've never seen anything like that in real life.
Yeah. You know, the artsy movie was bad.
Well, no shit.
It was.
That's why he's a mechanic.
Right.
Filmmaker.
Right. The you know, I as reading about it, you know, Lucky McKee making out with someone in the elevator, that was gross. That was him. And my God, can these people be any skinnier in this movie? Every single person is just like pencil thin.
It's Hollywood, baby.
I know. Yeah, and you know, I think he, you know, really shows what happens if you don't stick your dick in crazy.
Well, he didn't even.
No.
He didn't even do that. He realized his mistake and was like, "No, I don't think I can do that." And he didn't even do that, and he still died. So,
yeah,
to stay all the way away from crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know if I appreciate the hand moving, the arm moving at the end. I think it took away from the psychosis of it. You know, it was left to interpretation whether she was actually imagining it or if it actually happened.
I think the ending would be a lot more depressing if it wasn't there. I think you'd walk away from that movie going like, "Wow, I feel bad. Like, I'm depressed. Like this, what a horrible way to go." Like, you know what I mean? So I think that arm just gives you enough of that, you know, fantastical element where you go like, "What the hell was that?" rather than depression.
I could have done without that last piece, but that's just me.
Well, maybe you just like being depressed.
I mean, that's fair. What about you? What are your low points?
Okay. Too many scenes of people sticking things in their eye.
Well, he said he likes Argento, right?
Oh man. Like she was like, dude, trying to put her contacts in her eyes. She was like literally like touching her eyes with her fingers. Like, I don't know how I can't wear contacts simply for that reason. I can't touch I can't even do eye drops in my eyes. Like that's how like my eyes just like shut closed. That I did not like that. There's too many creepy dolls. The one doll was creepy, but then she had creepy dolls like all over her whole house. That wasn't cool either.
Right.
It also follows the trope of, oh, she's going crazy, she must have to kill an animal first.
Yeah.
As always, every fucking movie they kill a goddamn animal. Every single one. Like, if you want to show a person's bad, if you want to show a person's like losing it or whatever, always the fucking animal dies first every time. And the other thing that's really just a personal pet peeve of mine is when people fake smoke. It drives me insane because I mean I don't smoke anymore, but I smoked for a long time. And when I was younger, cigarettes were like a commodity, right? Like they were hard to get, and you like, you know, hoarded them like Smeagol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get people that were like, "Oh, can I have a cigarette?" And you give it to them, and you obviously can tell they've never smoked before or they don't know how. And they're like, "Dude, these are like my lifeblood." Do not take a cigarette and then like fake fucking smoke it in front of me. Like obviously I'm gonna know that you don't know how to smoke or you don't actually smoke. Like why are you wasting my time and my cigarette? Please don't do that. Anyway, it's just a thing that I've always hated ever since I was a kid because I've lost too many cigarettes to people pretending and I didn't like it. And seeing her do it in this movie upset me. So that's it. That's all I got.
That's fair.
So, this week we'll do Bitten Fingers.
There's a few of those in these movies.
Yeah, there's quite a few bites and chewing and stuff. Yeah, I'll get into more. Yeah, the movies that I watched, because I watched more for research purposes, there was more Bitten Fingers in those for sure. So we're doing Bitten Fingers out of 10. Graveyard, how many Bitten Fingers out of 10 would you give the movie?
This is a weird one because it's not a particularly great movie, but it's not particularly bad either. It's kind of middle of the road. It's like, okay, you can watch it once and probably never need to watch it again. Do I enjoy it? Yeah. I mean, I thought it was great then. I think it's good now. I will give this 6 Bitten Fingers out of 10.
Yeah, you know, it's fair. I think I'll agree with you there. It's good, but yeah, like I watched it again and like, okay. I mean, I didn't really like get anything the second time that I didn't get the first time. Like it's a movie that you definitely watch once because it's good, it's interesting, but it's not like a rewatch.
Right.
So yeah, six bitten fingers out of 10, I think is a very fair number. Okay, so the next movie is The Woman. I will let you get into your recap after I explain the complicated history of this story and where it came from. So, originally there was a book called Off Season, written by an author named Jack Ketchum. No film made from this book. Then there was a sequel to that book called Offspring, written again by Jack Ketchum. A movie was made out of that book. The movie was made like a sequel to another movie that did not exist, oddly enough. They did the thing where you explain what happened in the first movie, like in the beginning, so you get a kind of a background, and that happens. But again, that movie was never made. So we get The Offspring, right? Now, Offspring, very low budget. very, very kind of, you can tell it was made like, for very little amount of money in like a very little tiny section of the woods that probably someone owned or knew someone that had it. Anyway, so The Woman is actually a sequel to that film, but it is based on a book. They did have a book that was the sequel to The Offspring called The Woman, which was written by Jack Ketchum and also co-written by Lucky McKee. So he was involved in the writing of the book and then went on to make the movie, with the director of The Offspring as being a producer on the film and Jack Ketchum helping him with the screenplay. So like everyone is fully involved in this movie, but it really is a standalone movie. You don't have to watch The Offspring to know what's going on in The Woman. Basically, I mean, The Woman, as we'll find out in like the opening seconds, is like a cannibal tribe survivor, right? The Offspring is basically like her, showing her cannibal tribe family and then it getting killed off, and she's the only survivor. That's basically all you're missing from that movie. Now the interesting part is that, The Woman, which Grave will describe here in a moment, there is a sequel to this movie called Darlin'. We'll find out why in a minute. But that movie was made by the actress who plays the woman, wrote and directed that, which was produced by the director of Offspring and Lucky McKee. And I believe Jack Ketchum worked on it a little bit, but he died before the movie, I think, came out. But he was like involved at least in the beginning stages, and he did get like a special thanks in the movie. So I did watch Offspring and Darlin' in addition to this, but that really doesn't have any bearing on this. It's a trilogy, yes, but they're all standalone films. They don't like lead into it. You're not missing anything by watching any of them out of order, really. So that's the complicated story behind The Woman. So Graveyard, go ahead.
Yes. So, I mean, not a lot actually happens in this, but like I said, just a quick recap is essentially we're introduced to the previously on, we meet the woman. That's all she's called, is the woman, with a baby. She has a stomach wound, which if I had watched the rest of them like Salem did, I'd probably know a lot more about it.
She got stabbed.
That's it. Okay.
That's all you need to know. Literally, that's all you need to know. You don't miss anything.
And we are introduced to, we start off at a barbecue with a family, teenage girl about 16, looks very awkwardly by the pool. Guy who, son who plays basketball and watches everyone, poor person get picked on and bullied. A little girl, and then just if I didn't know better, I'd say a very religious father and husband.
Or you could just describe him as misogynist. And that's the most accurate description you can get.
Yeah, where his wife has to like obey him. His kids have to obey him. He's that really big piece of shit, let's face it.
Correct. Yes.
So anyway, they kind of go, they have this little thing. They go back to their house, which, by the way, I'd love to have by the woods like that. Anyway, they have chores to do, and he goes out hunting, and he happens to see the woman as she's kind of bathing herself. Not really well, but kind of. He's like, oh man. So like spies on her. He's like, this is gonna be great. He comes back home, tells his kids they need to clean out their bunker, I guess, or their fruit.
I think
it's cellar.
It's like an old timey storm shelter. It's like, you know, like in like Wizard of Oz where they have like that. Yeah, it's like that,
but not attached to the house.
No, they usually sometimes they weren't.
Yeah. So they're doing this stuff. It's like, oh, don't worry, guys. I'm gonna have this great project for us. Don't you worry. And then eventually he goes back and sees the woman and captures her, and he introduces the family to him. Like, she's me, our project. We're going to civilize her, and do good things with her. Why? He really explains why. It just he's the man. He's decided to do it, and that's it.
Everyone who watches this film knows exactly where this is fucking going. Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure what his real plan is.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely. So anyway, he, has a 2-pulley system, kind of chains her up, and he's kind of checking on her, and she bites his finger off and eats it, because he was bad touch guy. So we found out he's a lawyer, which is great. But he's like, oh, this is great. We're gonna do this stuff. Anyway, the older daughter is going to school, and her very probably lesbian teacher is very concerned with her because she's always going to the bathroom. She's always seems to be sick. She seems very concerned to her as a teacher. So she's obviously having trouble in school, not participating in gym, and just kind of sickly. So she starts to get concerned. The son is very, let's say, being groomed by the father to be just like him.
I would probably go a step further to say like that kid is like a full sociopath.
Right. There's this girl that he kind of likes, and what's he do? He puts gum in her brush just so he can pull it out for her.
Well, no, he does that because he lost to her in basketball. They were playing horse and she won, and so he just quietly goes back in and puts gum in her hair to mess with her again, just like sociopath behavior.
That's just abusive. So all this stuff is kind of going on there. The family, decides to, they were going to clean her and teach her how to speak, all this stuff. They tried giving her food. She doesn't want it. She's making a mess because she's tied up, and everyone's got to take care of her, the woman. You can tell the dad is very, once again, handsy with her and is going to do bad things, which he does. And we see that it's kind of like the family dynamic just really for what it is, right? The son's turning into a sociopath. The daughter is assumed to be pregnant by the teacher.
The daughter is pregnant by the dad.
Yes. First, the teacher does eventually come out. It's like, I accuse your son. Like, no, you accuse me. No, I would never do like that. That comes into play a little bit later. And to no one's surprise, the husband is abusive to his wife, like physically abusive. Puts her in her place that he thinks he should be able to. He has his way with the woman. The son watches, and the wife kind of knows about it because he's just kind of that guy.
Well, I'm also guessing that when he gets up in the middle of the night when he thinks she's sleeping and sneaks off, that he's doing something. Like, I'm assuming he was probably molesting his poor daughter before that, and now he's going out to the woman in the shelter. So, I mean, the wife might have kind of been sort of complicit in this because at least it's not her daughter anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Maybe that's why she didn't react faster, but
right.
It's a real fucked up situation.
A little bit, yeah. So anyway, teacher, all that stuff happens. The son then goes out, and you can't really tell what he's trying to do with the pliers, but it's insinuated that the mom catches him touching her and touching himself, but he's also kind of stabbing her with the pliers too. It's
really
you get weird. It's weirdly cut, put together.
she's got chunks taken out of her, and if you look closely, you can see that he tore off one of her nipples with the pliers.
Right.
So bad things.
Yeah. So, dad's like, comes home, oh, he was caught. And he goes, is this true? Why? Your daughter caught him. Of course it's true. He asked the son, it's true. He just kind of doesn't say anything. Well, I have my answer. Well, boys will be boys. Oh, well. And eventually the teacher comes over, and that's when the accusation is made, and they kind of hang about her and take her to the dogs, which we finally see after hearing them the entire movie. Right. I hadn't known they had dogs for a while because they just talked about it.
I would say one of the things is that he actually knocked his wife out when she tried to speak out against him.
I'm leaving you. Yeah, okay.
And then he literally punches her multiple times, knocks her out, and then the teacher comes over while she is unconscious, just to add more insult.
Right, which is not good for the teacher.
Right.
Because they throw her to the dogs, and the dogs are going to bite her and stuff like that. Nope, here comes Darlin.
No, Darlin is the little girl.
Oh, that's right. I don't know what they named. I don't remember the name. The other daughter they have that was kept
Socket.
With the Socket. She has no eyes.
Right. Well, they were chanting like whatever the girl was like biting the teacher. I forgot it. It's like anthalamy or something like that is what they were like chanting, and that means a child born with no eyes. So essentially what happened is the wife was kind of alluding to this in the scene before, but what happened is she had a child. That child did not have eyes, on some kind of, minor birth deformity kind of thing. And daddy, being the, loving, compassionate person that he is, decided to that she is not a human. She should be treated as a dog because she is undesirable. So she's been living in the dog cage her whole life.
And treated, and she's no different than the woman.
Correct.
And she, her and the dogs decide, get to eat the teacher. Anyway, the oldest daughter, while this is kind of going on there because the son and the husband are kind of watching it, the mom wakes up. The oldest daughter frees the woman, who then goes and kills. Well, first she kills the mother.
Yeah.
The mother tries to stop it, and she just straight out kills her. Because she's very complacent in everything that was going on. That's how I took it as far as the woman is concerned.
Well, yeah, because there's multiple scenes earlier in the film to where the woman locked eyes with her, and she just like looked away and like basically
did nothing,
did everything her husband told her to do. So she sees her as part of the problem,
right?
And she's not wrong.
Very strongly throws her around like a rag.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a small woman too. She's played by May.
Right.
So all that is going on there. She gets to the son, kind of chops him in half.
Yeah, with the lawnmower blade, right?
Lawnmower blade, and then the husband tries to get the gun, kind of shoots his ear a bit, and then she rips out his heart and starts to eat it. She frees Socket and starts feeding her father's heart. The little girl gives her water that's there, and she has her lick her fingers, and she kind of takes the children away to become part of her new family. End of movie.
Yep.
I have not seen this movie before, so I'll go into my first thought is like, holy shit, this movie is bizarre.
Yes, it is very bizarre. Especially considering it's a sequel to another movie that you don't have to watch to see this. It's very weird.
Yeah. And it's I'd say vastly different than May and other things I know I've seen by Lucky McKee. But it seems like it could have been like just like that feral human next progression. Right, that kind of storyline that exists,
right?
The woodman, or like Wrong Turn, if you will, or house, home episode of X-Files, kind of like just the next level, I would say.
Well, those are just inbred people. They still have like a house. They still like act kind of like sort of normal, but like yeah, they're like just monsters.
Feral
They're
humans,
just like
yeah.
feral human. Yeah, they're cannibal
Yeah.
feral.
But the wife watched part of it with me, and she didn't think it was as bad as we thought it was going to be, as far as the gore and everything is concerned.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen it in a couple of years. I could not remember how graphic some of the scenes were, like with the pliers and with, you know what I mean? Like I couldn't remember how deep it got into the body horror. That's why I said don't let your wife watch.
Right.
That's because I know that she doesn't like body horror. So that was why I said don't let her watch it. But I mean, yeah, rewatching it now, it wasn't that bad. I couldn't remember the details of it.
Yeah. So I mean, what are your first thoughts and the rewatches? Because you've seen this before, obviously.
Yeah, I've seen it before. Like I said, the first time I saw it was like, I think it was like a year or two after it came out. It was, basically I was told to watch it by a friend of mine because we were kind of at that time trying to challenge each other with weird, gross movies to like force each other to watch.
Oh, is this when the Infamous movie came into play?
Yeah, I think that was like the ultimate, like what the hell? Like we stopped after that. But it was like we were trying to like, you know, find weird movies for each other to watch, and that was one that he had brought up to me and was like, "Oh, you should watch this. It's really weird." And I'm like, "Okay." And I remember he had, I think, a Shudder account at the time, and we watched it on his account. So I'm pretty sure how it worked. But anyway, but yeah, I was like, that was weird. I mean, it's a bizarrely weird movie. At that time, I did not see the movie before it or after it. Well, the movie after it wasn't even out then.
Right.
But yeah, it's bizarre. it's weird. It's uncomfortable to watch. There's some scenes where you're just like, like you just want to like fast forward through it. It's like, I don't like watching this, but, it's good. It's just, again, it's going to put you in an uncomfortable spot, probably, unless you're a sociopath or something.
Right. Unless you're the husband or son of this movie.
Right.
Do you want me to go first then for highlights?
Sure.
All right. I thought the one did a fantastic job as the woman. I thought very animalistic and portrayed very well. Because you always watch stuff like that some people and actors don't do a fantastic job playing that type of person because they don't really have lines. You know,
right. It's all emotional, right?
Yeah, it's emotional. It's all body and facial stuff, right? And I thought she did a fantastic job doing that.
Yeah, because a lot of it, Pollyanna McIntosh is her name, but but she does a good job selling it in this. She did a good job in the movie before this. I mean, like the weird like language that she speaks. There's no subtitles in this film, really.
Mm-hmm.
But that weird language that she speaks is actually like a language that she kind of sort of made up. And in the first movie, you get some scenes where there's actually like subtitles. Like it is a language that the cannibals speak to each other, but again, in this movie, all the rest of them are dead. So it's like a language that only one person speaks. So what's the point of putting subtitles in there? Because no one knows what it means anyway.
Right.
So in the first movie, it is a language that they do understand each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, caveman language. But yeah, this one they don't. But yeah, no, she does a fantastic job with it. I think she really liked the characters, which is why I think she did a good job with it, which is why I think she continued it with another film herself after this. That's because she really was like trying to own that character.
Right. I really felt like I hated the dad.
Yeah. His acting is fantastic because you really do not like him.
Right. Do I everyone else's acting I could take and leave. But those two in particular really sold it. Like amazingly well. And you know, without having seen, you know, read the book or watched, you know, the first movie or the third one, it still like was a good standalone thing that you were able to watch it, and that's rare for a lot of horror movies, right?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, there's little things here and there, but really inconsequential stuff. I mean, it's Yeah, it's really any one of these of the movies of the trilogy you could watch, and they're completely standalone. I mean, yeah, there is the connection of the woman being in all of them, but like they're really different movies. So
Yeah. And I do enjoy I felt like the body horror that was there, the tearing of stuff, it looked very visceral. I thought it looked fantastic for what we did see. Really, the eating of her face, tearing of the heart and stuff out. Now, not necessarily the way things were shot. We'll get to that a little bit later, but viscerally, I thought it looked fantastic. That's what I got. What about you?
Yeah, I do like the music in this movie. I know it's one guy did like the entire soundtrack, and the songs are similar for sure.
Yeah.
But they did fit pretty well with it, and I thought they did pretty good. I mean, it's an interesting soundtrack for a movie that usually just has cheesy stand-in score stuff, because they usually don't have much of music, and it was an interesting put in there. Yeah, like you said, the blood and the effects and the visceral guts and all that was really well done. That was great. I did like the dog twist quite a bit, because they really didn't lead into that like at all. I mean, like
No.
the previous scene to this, like it was kind of weird that the dogs like were never out of the cage, which was strange. But again, shitty people do shitty things with the animals, right? I was not really surprised. But then the scene before this, she's like, just what's going out there with the dogs could put you in prison. And it's like, what? Like, what does that mean? What's going on? And then the next scene is like, you find out, and it's like, wow. And I mean, that's like, you didn't expect like that quite, as weird as it was.
No, I mean, I was never expecting dogs to actually be there, because we never saw them.
Right. Yeah. You just hear them barking off screen, and that was it. But it's like, it's a weird twist out of nowhere. And you're like, wow, why? It doesn't need to be there, but it makes it richer to be there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I liked the post-credit scene was pretty cool. Just kind of like a bizarre kind of stop motion animation thing. Didn't really add much to it. It was just a little fun thing. Did you actually watch it?
I didn't realize it was supposed
to. It's not much of anything. It was like a stop motion animation of like Darlin looking through like a spyglass at like this weird island, and then she gets on the island, and there was kind of like a weird Cthulhu looking stop motion thing made out of like fabric and stuff. It was just interesting looking. Again, there was no even speaking or anything. It was just a little thing.
Well, now I have to go back and watch it.
I mean, it was just a little like 30-second minute long thing. It was just interesting.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll just roll into my low points. The dogs in the cage, obviously. I know, like, he had all of that property, like all of that open property. And yeah, the dogs were like locked in, like, I mean, it was, I guess, like a like a stable sized cage, but like, why? Why would they be locked in? I mean, obviously later on you see like it's because his daughter was in there, like there was an excuse to keep them together, I guess, but like, how bizarre. Like, why would you do that? Especially an asshole guy like that. You'd think he'd just let his dangerous dogs off leash all the time. You know what I mean? You just
he probably did that just so anyone that would go in there would not.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Find her, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess he trained her to like stay in the doghouse thing when people come in there. Whatever. It was just bizarre. Yeah, I mean, obviously the dad and the son are horrible people. And like every time they're involved with anything, it's just like, oh man, are these people horrible? Like somebody needs to punch them a lot. And one thing that's a huge pet peeve for me, and I hate seeing it, when people read a book and they fold the pages
completely
back.
over.
Oh my God. It hurts. Like it literally, I feel it in my bones. Like, I don't care how shitty of a paperback crappy copy you have. Do not do that. You're destroying the binding. You're like basically preventing anyone else from ever enjoying this book again by folding it over. Like, it's a tiny paperback. Just fucking hold it open with your finger. Yeah, it really hurts me to see that. And Peg, the daughter, did it more than once. It was upsetting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got. What do you got?
You know, the acting a bit. I don't want to rag too much on actors, but I'm sorry, the teacher was not good.
Genevieve.
She looked like she was 2 years older than the oldest daughter. First and foremost.
You know what? I've had some teachers that looked very, very young. My teacher in 4th grade, my mom like had a hard time believing she was my teacher because she was like literally just out of college.
Yeah,
she looked like a teenager.
Going to your student's house where you suspect she's pregnant and she has no boyfriend by yourself. You don't do that.
Okay, well, you also don't expect someone to fucking go insane and murder you. You know what I mean? It's not something you would expect to happen.
Right. I would say both scenes with the father and the son with the woman was cut very weirdly and poorly.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they probably cut it to keep the rating down.
It's entirely possible, but it looked awful.
That's fair. Again, I don't think so, but it's like one of those movies that I think I saw like a different version of. Like I remember it being much more graphic, but that may just be me remembering it wrong. It's happened.
I mean, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, it's happened.
We've seen that in horror movies that, you know, we're lucky enough to see the original stuff. Like I said, Home from X-Files. We were both lucky enough to see the original airing, and that's the only time that version was ever shown.
Right.
So I can definitely see that in this movie. Like I said, the cutting of it was just abysmal for those parts. And you're right. Yeah, the book bindings, like as you said, folded over completely. Like read a book and then just fold it so it's just like the book shape still. Like you stretch out the binding tremendously.
Yeah, like I said, you're just destroying the book. You're like tearing the pages out of the binding.
Right.
Yeah, you're seriously decreasing the life of that book. Don't do it.
Yeah. You know, and I guess here's the question: do you consider this a bad ending?
I mean, it depends on your point of view, I guess. It's about as bad as an ending as May.
Yeah, but the people in May didn't have it coming.
I mean,
like you felt bad for the woman. She was doing, was she cannibal? Yes. Was she doing any harm?
Well,
No.
I think that's the one thing that watching the first movie gives you is that she's not a nice person. She's done some pretty horrible shit. Like, you don't really feel all that bad for her. I mean, you do feel bad for her still because she's like, you know, chained down like an animal and like, you know, molested and stuff. That's not good. But she's not nice. Like,
I'm saying
she's got bodies on her hands. So
in
like,
the context of this movie, yes.
Yeah, this movie taken out of that, yeah, I guess you'd think she's just like Nell, the feral woman. Like, you don't you know what I mean? You know, that's like, it's a lot different than you know, like, or you know, Mowgli raised by wolves or whatever, right? You know, like that,
Right.
like, oh, he's just quirky and weird. Like, no, she fucking murdered a lot of people and ate them. Like, she was not a nice person. If anyone deserved it, it was probably her. Not saying she deserved it. I'm just saying, like,
well, but I'm saying that then deters from why you can't watch this as a standalone then, because you're taking her character completely out of context.
Right.
So that would it almost means you do have to watch.
Well, I mean, I mean, the way that this movie is presented is you're supposed to be like, you're supposed to know that she's kind of not a good person. You know, she's like a, you know, survivalist kind of nature, you know, survival of the fittest kind of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you kind of see like even an animal that, you know, kills for food, you know, should be looked kindly on, you know, when people are like, you know, using it for their own purposes like that.
Right. But no, that's about all I got for it. for low points.
All right. So I guess I'll go first on this one. How many bitten fingers out of 10 would I give the woman? I'm probably gonna stick with a 6. I'm gonna say 6 bitten fingers out of 10. Like I think it's just about the same as May. There's different spikes and lows, but I think overall it ends up in the same place.
Yeah, that's haven't only seen it once. Is it something I'm gonna watch again? No, I'm not. Let's face it.
Well,
I do rewatch movies a lot.
Well, yeah, I think this is like the 3rd time I've seen it. Like I watched it the first time, and then I watched it again when I was describing it to someone else, and they're like, "Oh, what?" So I just, all right, we'll just watch it.
So just I probably should go back, and realistically, we probably could do the other 2 movies as a standalone piece as well, or quite honestly, another Lucky McKee episode.
Well, Lucky McKee is this is the only one he did.
That he directed, yes.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't involved in Offspring at all, and he was only a producer on Darling.
Okay. So not having seen the entire trilogy, I agree with it. It's still a 6 for me. 6 bitten fingers out of 10. So maybe it'll change, retroactively change if I watch the first and third.
Huh.
So,
like I said, it doesn't add that much to it. I mean, there's a little bit of a background, but that's about it.
All right.
But yeah, you get to see some very low budget.
Yeah.
But like I said, I own it now. I bought it for $3. So, because I couldn't find it anywhere else.
I'll just have to watch it at your place.
Yeah, even the cover art is cheesy as hell. But yeah. It was better than I thought it was going to be, but it's not saying much.
No.
All right, so now we move on to Old Man. Came out in 2021, so not that long ago. Arguably not really a horror movie, I guess. I mean, there's some elements there, right?
Psychological thriller, I think, is what.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that falls under. I mean, we've had worse.
Yes.
less horror adjacent than this, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not a whole lot to recap there. It's basically a very intimate kind of movie where it's really only
episode.
2 people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a battle episode.
Right. It's 2 people. It reminds me of there's some movies that were made, that like they started out as like 2-person plays, like theater plays, and they make them into a movie, and they're very, like I said, intimate. They take place in like a room, and it's like 2 people. Like, have you ever seen what was that movie? The Sunset Limited?
No.
It was a movie like that. It was Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson are 2 people in basically the same thing. The whole movie is just them in a room talking.
So it's kind of like The Lighthouse.
Yeah, The Lighthouse had more stuff going on. Like, they actually left to go outside, and there was like outside forces and flashbacks, and there's interesting things going on. This is literally just 2 people in a room talking. That's it.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's an interesting story. You'll probably never watch it, right? I'm guessing.
No.
But yeah, basically it starts off as the Sunset Limited is a subway train, and Tommy Lee Jones tried to throw himself in front of it, and Samuel L. Jackson like saves him, and he's kind of one of those guys that brings in strays to try to help people that are like hurting,
Mm-hmm.
And the movie starts out with like Samuel L. Jackson trying to like get him to care about life again. And basically, and that for like the first half of the movie, it seems like that's where the direction is going. And then the last half of the movie is really Tommy Lee Jones coming back and just convincing Samuel L. Jackson that life is shit and not worth living. It's a very interesting movie, but this movie reminded me a lot of that movie. But essentially we have Stephen Lang, who is the old man from Don't Breathe. He was also the general from Avatar. Both of them, even though he died in the first one. He came back in the second one. Yeah, so essentially there's an old man that lives in a cabin in the woods. Who he kind of wakes up. He can't find what we're assuming is a dog, like Rascal. I can't find Rascal. Anyway,
Rascal, where are you, Rascal?
Right. So then somebody knocks on the door. He opens the door with a shotgun, of course. There's a younger guy basically saying he got lost in the woods. And, of course, there's banter back and forth. He doesn't trust them. Like, they don't trust each other, really.
No.
But the old man is kind of has the upper hand because obviously he's got a shotgun. When he's asking him, the guy's just saying, "Oh, I got lost in the woods," trying to convince him that he's not a threat, while the old man is like, basically not believing him. So eventually they get kind of to a standstill. Like he looks through his like backpack and he finds a knife, which kind of like was like, "Oh, well, if you're not just lost in the woods, what do you got a knife for?" Whatever. So they kind of go back and forth. He kind of settles him down by telling him this bizarre story about how he tortured a Bible salesman that came to his door, which is, I suppose, to set the guy at ease, which obviously does the opposite because he...
Right, because, that's question number 3. He's like, this is probably the most important question. You're not a salesman, are you?
Right.
What?
So he basically tells him this goofy story about how he tortured the guy. But then over time, they kind of bond on their kind of backstory, right? So where the old man is out there because he, it sounds like he's escaping his wife, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the questions he asks is like, "Are you here from my wife?" Like
my wife
seems
like,
you. Yeah, he doesn't want to do anything to do with his wife. And the younger guy is out there because, he got in a fight with his wife and he was like trying to, kind of rediscover a bit of his childhood to like help him get through a tough time. And he got lost
until he heard the moan.
Right. And then, there's a weird moan that like led him to this house. And then the old man tells him about this story about the purple lake that somehow heals people, whatever bizarre shit that is about. But it basically saying that they have kind of similar backstories. And as it goes on, it kind of, again, heavy alluding to that they may be the same person, or at least that they are extremely similar to the point of like, how unlikely is that going to be that you meet someone very similar to you in the middle of the woods, right? So anyway, so then he basically, the younger guy just sneaks out the front door. And then we have Rascal comes back, who is not a dog at all. He is like,
no.
I guess he looks like Van
Helsing.
Well, he looks like the saint of all killers from Preacher.
That too. He also looks like Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing.
Well, I mean, he's got a more dirty, angry look like the saint of all sinners. Like Van Helsing was at least had wittiness to him. This guy is just all frowns and anger. But anyway, so the old man is like, "Hey, there was just a guy here. Do you see him?" And the guy's like, "Oh, you and this bullshit again." Like basically, almost verbatim repeating what he's going to say all the time. Like this is a conversation they've had all the time. The old man basically kind of like clams up and becomes like a, like a dementia-ridden invalid almost. Like as soon as that guy walks in the room, like he really changes his whole personality.
Pees himself.
Right. Yeah, he like really changes his whole personality and he becomes a different person. It basically confirms that the guy that was there before was the younger version of him. Rascal is like the middle-aged, angry version of him, and the old man is the old version of him that's losing his memory and his mind.
Yeah.
So eventually he has a flashback where he sees what really happened in the past is that the Bible salesman was actually his best friend who was sleeping with his wife. He caught them, and then killed the Bible salesman best friend with the shotgun and then stabbed his wife to death with the knife.
Yes.
The same knife that the guy had in his backpack. So that's essentially what it is. And then we see after that, he basically like kind of breaks down. Rascal says, just go back to bed. We'll deal with this tomorrow. And he goes back to bed and essentially the whole thing just repeats again. Like literally the beginning of the movie just repeats. So it's like looks like an endless loop.
Yes.
And that's it. There's some like mid credits and end credit scenes of like just the wife's face doing different things. That's about it. There's nothing else that happens. But there you go. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, it's just it's a conversation with himself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like three different. It's like the old version, the middle-aged version, the young version of him having a conversation.
Right. Yep.
But like only but they can't be all together in the same time. So it's like only two at a time.
Right. So was this your first time seeing this?
Yeah. No, I haven't seen this before.
Yeah. I mean, I saw trailers for it, and I know it looks very similar to like the posters to Don't Breathe.
Well, I think they were probably trying to sell it because like, yeah, Stephen Lang at that time was like a known face.
Right. For sure. You know, for like I said, you know, you don't have to believe it, but as soon as Joe entered, you know, I kind of knew like, okay, I know where the story's going for the most part. Because to me, and you know, this isn't going to get into this isn't a high point or low point for me. I'm just going to say it now. When you have two characters that are different ages, and we have a name for one of them and not a name for the other, I think that's a thing that we see often is that they are the same person. So that's what hinted me at, okay, yeah, I didn't see the twist of it being the same day repeating over and over and over again. But as I said, so when we have Joe and the old man, I immediately thought, oh, this is a younger version of himself. I mean, what are your first thoughts on this?
Yeah, like I said, like I kind of brought it before. It reminded me a lot of the Sunset Limited and very similar movies to that, where it's just two people. I don't know. I guess I didn't look it up if it was a play or not, but it really looks like a theater play that was developed into a film because they usually end up in this same kind of format.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't actually look, but I've seen other movies that were like that, so that's just what it reminded me of.
Do you want to go for your high points?
Sure. Okay. Again, yeah, I really like that intimate play part of it. You know, I mean, it really relies heavily on acting, right? If the people are not acting well, it's going to be terrible, right? It's going to be a drag. It's going to be horrible to suffer through. As long as the acting is good and it keeps you interested, you know, then it's, you know, it's great. And I think they did a great job with that. And they both, I think, sold their parts well. And it kept you interested. You know, it wasn't a movie where you're looking at the clock the whole time. It was an interesting watch. But yeah, I mean, like I said, without that acting, it's not going to get in there. And I did like the twist of it, where it's, you know, different versions of himself. And he just can't remember. The old man just can't remember because he's got, you know, whatever dementia or
right.
whatever's happening. And then he keeps reliving it because the purple water from this lake is supposed to heal you. And apparently only heals like 24 hours. So literally it's just repeating.
Right.
But that's all I got. What about you?
No, I mean, I still enjoyed the twist, right? Of it being of himself, right? Talking to himself. And that Rascal really wasn't a dog. It was really just another version of himself. And it helps do that. He's stuck in it's almost like he's stuck in purgatory or hell. Which you can draw a lot of conclusions that whether he is or whether he isn't, you know, and the purple lake, as you said, is the cure to his dementia that it's just a temporary fix. Like when he wakes back up, he has to go through the same thing every single day.
Right. Well, yeah, that's, again, the Sandoval Killers from Preacher is that really it was like what hell was in that show is like what this is. It's like people living like their worst day over and over and over again.
Right. And he's just has to come to terms with his killing every single day. And that would be hell. Right.
Right.
And not knowing it. And while watching it, I just kept going, why is Stephen Lang's character's accent changing so often in the movie? I felt like it changed a couple of times. Like the way he would say something, like his accent would get changed. And I think whether that was just his mannerism of speaking, or if that was intentional to show his different stages of losing himself, or showing that he is the unreliable narrator.
Well, I think it's also just he's from Tennessee.
Right.
Tennessee people can go either way, depending on if you're in a metropolitan area or in a rural area. And I think because he started in a metropolitan area and then moved to a rural area, I think he has both of them. And maybe depending on what he's remembering, what part of his life he's reliving, he may speak slightly differently. I think that's what they were going for.
Okay. I still find it interesting because he pulls off that character. He pulls off the old man.
Oh yeah, for
easily.
Sure.
Easily. Now, do I think the guy who played Joe was as fantastic as Stephen Lang? No. I think Stephen Lang just did it great. But
I think Joe was the straight man for Stephen Lang. Yeah.
For sure. And I just kind of, I think it's, funny that talks about like all his fancy stuff, like, he's just gonna wash his hands after using the bathroom, and in the middle of the conversation, Stephen Lang just takes a giant shit and does nothing about any of it.
Well, again, this is also a guy that has basically lived in a cabin by himself for 40 years or whatever, or maybe 20, who knows?
Something like that.
You live alone for long enough, you don't bother closing the door of the bathroom anymore.
That's fair. But no, I think that's all good stuff to it and adds to the depth of the movie. How about you?
That cabin living. Yeah, I don't think I could do that.
No?
Like, well, just having like a toilet is just a hole in a corner of the room. Like, you know how bad that would smell? That whole place would smell horrible because it's just a little square room.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's just nasty. I mean, whatever. Like, the guy's shitting with people there. I mean, there's not like there's a door to close. There's not like there's a curtain or anything. The old man at this point is like, he feels like he has the upper hand anyway, so he's just gonna, stop taking shit when he has to shit. That's all. But yeah, I don't think I would want to live like that.
No.
But that generator was pretty great though. Like, he just cranked it like 3 times and it kept going for like 24 hours. So I guess that's good. I don't know what kind of crank generator lasts that long, but that's pretty sweet. Yeah, I mean, the whole like, cheating wife things, that's not nice. That's not fun. I don't enjoy that. But I will say her eyebrows were terrible. Like, she needed to do some plucking there. She needed to go to like one of those threading places, or I don't know what she needed to do, but they were all messy. But I guess that's kind of like part of the style nowadays. It's like weird, big, thick eyebrows. I don't quite understand it, but it seems to be. I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying there's a weird subset of fashion that they have big, bushy eyebrows.
Yeah.
Don't get it. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I don't understand it. That is all.
Those are your low points?
Yes. So,
all right.
Bitten Fingers, out of 10, how many would you give the old man?
This isn't a horror movie.
No.
As we discussed.
It is not.
It is a fantastic thriller, right? It kind of reminds me a little bit of, it was Shooter in Secret Window, right? Stephen King, movie.
One with Johnny Depp? Yeah. Okay.
Which that you have good indications that they were the same person.
Right.
Like I said, Stephen Lang though carried this movie. Like, he was this movie, hands down.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's named after him.
Yeah. So It's a fantastic movie. So am I rating it based off of how horror it is or how fantastically, like I said, we've done stuff that isn't there? But I would watch this again, probably more so than the other two. So I will go 7.5 bitten fingers out of 10.
Okay, that's fair. I wouldn't go quite that high, but I'll go 7. Lose 7 bitten fingers out of 10. But yeah, definitely worth rewatching. I thought it was fun. I thought, yeah, I mean, the performances were good, and it was an interesting, like, kind of experiment, I guess.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
Yeah, it was fun.
For sure. I mean, it felt like it could have been an anthology movie too, like in an anthology or short film or episode of an anthology show. Like it could have been like an Into the Dark episode too. And I have to say I failed on my part as a co-host of this, because had I realized Lucky McKee did a certain movie, I would have thrown it onto this episode.
What's that?
The Woods.
The Woods.
It has Bruce Campbell in it.
Yeah. Oh, dear
God. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I didn't realize it was the same guy. Now, did I realize it in 2004 when the trailer came out and I had to wait 2 years for it? That maybe it's like, oh, this guy that did May, maybe. But after May, honestly, I forgot about this writer and director, which is a shame.
I didn't know his name until recently. I had no idea that he was. I guess I had watched May and the Woman separately. I had no idea it was the same person. I didn't realize that recently until I was looking through. Well, what was I think I was looking to see where I could fit the woman in.
Yes.
And then I was like looking. I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize he did May. May would fit. And then I was just looking for another one. Like Old Man seemed like the most kind of, I guess, feature worthy of his movies. I'm like, okay, great, throw that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't really horror. I guess I thought it was something else, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
I said it has its place as it. We discussed a lot about thrillers and where they fit into this world of horror, that they do fit there. It's psychological thriller, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that you label things as horror, but like there's so many other things that are a part of it, right? So it's like, what's the percentage of horror in all of its forms in Old Man? I mean, it's what, I don't know, 10%, It's not
Right.
It's not a lot, but it's still there. I mean, there's so many movies that have elements of it, right? Like the only ones that really don't is like, rom-coms or like, just like straight comedies, they don't really have much of it. But I mean, like almost all, well, a lot of action, sci-fi, like all these other different genres all have little elements of horror in them.
Right.
So yeah, we've had movies that have had less horror in them for sure. So yeah, it's not the worst ones we've done.
No. I said, I obviously, I want to throw in a Bruce Campbell one just because, but yeah.
You can make your own Bruce Campbell episode later if you want.
Oh, I'm going to. For sure.
All right.
But overall, no, I said overall, not a disappointing week.
No, we've definitely had worse.
Yeah, I said 2 new movies for me, which is rare for us to have 2 movies, let alone, I think we've only had a handful that were 3.
Yeah, there's usually at least one movie that we knew before and we looked to see what else we could fit with it. Is usually how our process works.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's rare when we have a theme for movies that we have not seen.
Right. And this is why I really enjoy doing this podcast, is to be able to go back and watch stuff like this. The stuff that we missed along the way, stuff that's come out. So yeah, it's like I said, overall decent week.
Well, oh yeah, the next week I've only seen one of these movies, so there'll be 2 that I haven't seen. Anyway, so I'll get to that. So stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new Art of Stop Motion Did Not Die with Ray Harryhausen. Most of the 80s and 90s, stop motion animation was reserved for younger audience movies, but it is making a comeback as new directors embrace the creepiness and apply it to horror. We will be discussing Stop Motion, Mad God with the great Phil Tippett, and Wolf House in our first art style episode. And yeah, that'll be next week. I've seen Mad God, Stop Motion, and Wolf House. I have not seen, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Stop Motion just came out.
Okay.
So I'm excited for it. I enjoy this. I know you have lots to convey and discuss about Mad God.
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about my Kickstarter
Exactly.
my Kickstarter experience with Mad God. But yeah, we'll get into that.
And Phil Tippett is kind of was under the tutelage of Ray Harryhausen, I believe.
I mean, that's very possible. Phil Tippett has been in it for a long time. I know he did like Star Wars. He was like the guy that did the stop motion for Star Wars. So we're talking at least the 70s.
Well, and Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You know, he was hired to do the stop motion animation for the dinosaurs because they thought they were going to do stop motion, and because of his work of stop motion, they were able to use the computer engineers were able to do it in the computer graphics. They followed off of Phil Tippett's stop motion background,
Right?
And it's kind of the big move of CGI and how you can actually do it with animals. So I love that history of it.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, I know Phil Tippett is still around. Still doing stuff.
Ray Harryhausen only died like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, when he was an older dude. I don't think he was doing much at the end.
No. So no, I'm excited for next week. Sure.
It'll be fun. Be there or be square.
Yeah.
And remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to.
And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.
Good night.